I'm definitely looking forward to seeing all these players kind of battle it out again. But man, I just want to see more Pokemon. That's kind of what I'm here for, and especially because we've got I think in the next matchup a bit more of an aggressive one, so it should go a little bit faster. For those of you that were were hoping for some very quick and riveting gameplay there. So really looking forward to that. But we will be hopefully getting into this one as quickly as possible. That way, you guys don't have to wait too long for us to get into more Pokemon action.
Yeah, it looks like they're actually already ready and loaded. So let's finally get into it. It's been a long day so far, and we are down.
Yeah.
We're down to this round of losers. Of course, the winner of this will play Plop for a spot in to see who advances out of this group. But yeah, we've had some really long, drawn-out sets, but I don't know. I've been really impressed by everyone in this pool once again. Like, I think they've actually demonstrated really good understanding and knowledge of this game. And I really don't feel like I'm watching people who are new to the game playing. I feel like these guys, like whoever, all their coaches definitely have put in the work.
Oh, yes. And just to remind you guys of who those coaches are, if you guys are watching Pool B and you didn't get a chance to hear this the first time, we got Hugs getting coached by James Beck. We have Ludwig getting coached by Jive Time. Plup is getting coached by Ashton Cox, and Toph is getting coached by Ethics. So incredible pairs. I think that even for Pool A as well, we had some stellar players, stellar Smash players, and stellar Pokemon trainers paired up together as well in order to bring you the best gameplay possible. And I feel like we've been super rewarded today from all of the hard work that everybody's been putting into this. So really been a blast so far. But let's get into this next game, shall we? It is going to be Ludwig versus Toph for a spot to play against Plup in the winners or in the losers finals here. So we want to see what's going to kind of happen here. But Toph actually leading with a Pokemon that we haven't gotten a chance to see too much of just yet here. But Toph leading with that Tyranitar as well as the Hitmontop, and Ludwig bringing back out the Dusclops and that Butterfree.
Yeah, the Tyranitar coming out here is actually a major threat to both Dusclops and Butterfree, especially because it can choose to Dynamax and potentially go for a Max Darkness there immediately onto the Dusclops. Now, we've seen that this is an Assault Vest set, so it's not going to have Protect. You don't have to worry as much about, the weakness policy that Tyranitars often carry. And Hitmontop here can go for a Fake Out onto Butterfree. So, I mean, that's pretty much the only option it has. You can maybe go for a Fake Out and then Dynamax Max Darkness. But I'm not sure. I don't think a Max Darkness would honestly knock out the Dusclops. Dusclops is one of the bulkiest Pokemon in the game. So it depends on how, especially defensive, the Dusclops is trained. Rhyperior coming out here, yeah, not wanting to eat a Fake Out. So smart switch there by Ludwig to start this off.
Yeah, definitely going to be a smart switch here, but now it's going to be Tyranitar getting a chance to do a bit of damage, but Dusclops does get a chance to get the Trick Room off.
Yeah,
and that sets up Tyranitar super well.
I think Toph either just wanting to go for consistent damage or maybe trying to fish for a flinch, because an early flinch would really set Ludwig back, but now he's got the desired situation where once again you have the you can just bulldoze and then the Rhyperior can just Dynamax and sweep through. So really smart play there, turn one. And I think like the thing about leading Hitmontop is it just doesn't offer very much against Dusclops. The only thing you can do with it is basically go for a Fake Out. You can't even close combat the Dusclops. And I think the Hitmontop, I believe we saw had Helping Hand, so that was certainly an option, but Helping Handing there when Butterfree is putting on pressure with Sleep Powder is risky. So I think Ludwig capitalizing off the lead advantage and really snowballing nicely with it there. Toph is definitely in a tough position now. He's probably going to want to switch out the Hitmontop to re-intimidate the Rhyperior, but the key thing here is he just doesn't have great damage output right now, especially with an Assault Vest Tyranitar.
Yeah, the Assault Vest has been proved to be like such a problem, I feel like, for most players to really deal with, because it just allows Tyranitar to survive through so much. But Rhyperior now with the Trick Room active is going to get a chance to Dynamax and really put out some big damage here for the side of Ludwig, and it's going to be really important to see kind of where these moves end up connecting here. Hitmontop with the Bullet Punch, though, into the Dusclops, just gets a bit of chip damage, but even with the critical, that just doesn't really do very much there. Bulldoze as well is going to be enough to, I think, proc the weakness policy there. Yep. And now that's going to be some heavy hitting damage coming out from that Rhyperior.
Yeah, that's pretty much going to be like one-shotting everything on the opposing end. I think part of the way to approach this matchup for Toph is that you want to cycle in the Intimidates with Hitmontop. But with him on top already being out on the field, it's just going to get destroyed here. And I like the target selection there by Ludwig as well, knowing, hey, your Tyranitar's really not going to do any damage against me, especially because I have the sand up, I'm going to get a special defense boost, and I'm Dynamaxed up. So, yeah, Ludwig getting his ideal Trick Room setup here, and Ancient Power against Rhyperior does, I think, literally 7 damage.
Yeah, going to be just a little bit of a tickle there. Not going to be too much, so definitely want to maybe make take a chance to pivot in this situation. I think Toph is going to have to bring out a little bit more damage to really deal with this Rhyperior.
Yeah, you certainly, I mean, this game's not over yet, but it does not feel great from Toph's perspective. There are not that many Pokemon on his team that can deal well with Rhyperior, even without the attack boost, and this Rhyperior right now is put in a position where it could potentially just one-shot every Pokemon. Tyranitar is also basically dead weight right now for Toph. It's doing no damage, and especially with the decision to Ancient Power, Excadrill at least can get super effective attacks off, but once again, we're talking about Rhyperior, one of the bulkiest offensive hitters in the format. You can pretty easily just knock it out with a Max Quake as well. And the question here is, who do you Dynamax if you're Toph? Tyranitar doesn't do anything even once Dynamax, and you probably want to choose Excadrill, but the thing is, Excadrill's going to just get obliterated by a Max Quake, especially if it doesn't have the Focus Sash item.
Yeah, and sometimes I actually Excadrill seems to run quite a few different items on it. I've seen anything from like Assault Vest to the Focus Sash. I've even seen Weakness Policy, which we know is not going to be the case because Togekiss is the one that actually has that item. So we haven't really seen too much from this Excadrill quite yet. So this is going to be really important information for Ludwig to gather. But it's going to be a switch out here on Toph's side of the field, and Excadrill actually going for a Protect here. So we're not going to actually see too much unless the Max Quake is going to go right into it.
Yeah, that'll break a potential Focus Sash as well. I like the oh my goodness, it brings it down to its Focus Sash. That is so strong. And
even through the Protect.
Yeah, I mean, I think what Toph is going for here is he's basically going to try to stall out the Trick Room. As we actually see Memento, that's a really cool move on Dusclops, not used super frequently, but that's actually potentially just game-winning right there, because now Gyarados, even if it Dynamaxes, is certainly not getting a knockout on Rhyperior. That's a great way to not only get a knockout, but you reduce the opponent's stats and you get a free switch in, which is exactly what Trick Room teams love here. So perfect play here from Ludwig, and great decision to target the Excadrill there, recognizing that Tyranitar is not a threat. It doesn't want to. I think one of the ways you can get around Rhyperior is exactly what Toph is doing. Switch in the Gyarados and try to eat up a Max Quake, but Ludwig does not kind of fall victim to that, and he is in a phenomenal position right now. Like, Excadrill is most certainly a double up here will knock out both Pokemon, so you might have to Dynamax Gyarados, Max Guard, and switch Excadrill out into Tyranitar to really have a chance here.
Yeah, this is a really tough position, I think, for Toph to be in. And again, though, working with what they've got, because I like the switch-in idea. Unfortunately, it just didn't work out there quite the way that I think Toph was hoping that it would. But yeah, Ludwig is gonna, I think, kind of run away with this game here with the Rhyperior, getting the Weakness Policy, just the perfect conditions for it as well with the Trick Room, allowing it to go super fast and end up dealing out massive amounts of damage. But this is Toph's chance. This is Toph's chance to really get something done here. It's going to be with the Dynamax, and the Dynamax target ends up being that Gyarados. So the Gyarados hopefully going to get a chance to knock out the Rhyperior here, but it's sitting pretty healthy, but can't take too many attacks.
Yeah, and the other thing is it's at -2 attack, and the sun is up, and no Protect from either Pokemon or a switch out. So given that Trick Room is still up, I think a double up here should just knock out the Gyarados, assuming Rockfall is coming out, and there it is.
Yeah, the Rockfall, he's just gonna deal such a big amount of damage there. Gyarados getting taken out, so a double knockout here for Ludwig, and this is gonna be, I think, Toph's last Pokemon, I believe.
Yep, it is, and it's that Tyranitar. Like, the Dynamax here was basically completely wasted on Toph's end this time, so I would have liked to see a Max Guard there, assuming it had, Protect, for example, or anything like Dragon Dance. At least you stall to turn to Trick Room there, instead of just, getting blown back while Trick Room is up. It effectively wasted Dynamax completely. So I think, Toph is basically going to have to ask himself, can I deny Trick Room? If not, then how do I stall it out? Because I think Hitmontop Tyranitar is not a very good lead against... I think the Tyranitar pick is great, but I think Hitmontop doesn't offer much. Something like Excadrill and Tyranitar might work out a little bit better, where you at least have flinch chances. Like, you can go for maybe like a double flinch chance, like a Iron Head, Dark Pulse into the Dusclops. But yeah, Torkoal and the Rhyperior will easily clean up the game now.
Yeah, Tyranitar's not going to be able to take too much of this. The high horsepower going into the Tyranitar after that, it just ends up doing so much, and that's going to be game one going over to Ludwig. And wow, the adjustments were definitely there, but unfortunately, Ludwig just played around those adjustments from Toph so expertly. Again, you really wouldn't know that you were watching brand new VGC players play this game.
Yeah, so I think going into game 2, like, Ludwig is probably still pretty confident with Trick Room. There was pretty much no challenge to it whatsoever, so we kind of have to go back to the drawing board for Toph and say, okay, what can Toph do to really not get destroyed by Trick Room right from the start? And I think it starts with the lead. Hitmontop as a lead doesn't really offer very much. You don't need to intimidate against a lot of Ludwig's team. The only thing it helps out against is that Rhyperior, and Rhyperior is pretty much never coming out as the lead. So I think if you do want to bring Hitmontop, perhaps leave it in the back. That could certainly make some sense. Leading with it, though, like, the fake out obviously doesn't affect the Dusclops, and it's pretty much always a dead weight after the Trick Room goes up. So I think Toph might want to consider a strategy revolved around that Gyarados, where if you can deny Trick Room, Gyarados can be an amazing tool against all of Ludwig's team. It's just really hard to deny that Trick Room. So, we have to go back to see what Pokemon Toph has on his team that can potentially even stop it. It looks really difficult to not deny it, though, and that's part of the reason why, like, Butterfree Dusclops is a really strong duo to set up Trick Room.
Yeah, that's such a tough one. I mean, oh my goodness, I don't really know how you play around it except for just trying to knock out the Dusclops before it can get the Trick Room off. But whew, how to do that? That's the big kind of question.
Right, like, that's why Butterfree and Dusclops is a really sick combination, because, like, there aren't many things that can one-shot Dusclops, and Butterfree essentially protects you from, like, a double-up immediately. So,
yeah,
I haven't seen the full moveset on Gyarados. I mean, there doesn't really look like a great way to really deny the Trick Room, to be honest. So I think the approach maybe is Tyranitar Excadrill and maybe try to go for a flinch on that first turn. If you do get a flinch, then you could potentially just double up into the Dusclops next turn after Dynamaxing. Otherwise, I mean, Rotom certainly doesn't do anything. It's good against Rhyperior, but you're never really gonna have it out. Like Rhyperior isn't gonna be out against it unless Trick Room is out, and like, it's a really free bulldoze, max Rockfall into that Rotom. So not really sure you can bring that. I think, like, maybe you go Tyranitar Excadrill as a lead, Hitmontop in the back. You could go for the Hitmontop Togekiss combination, but I'm not even sure a +2 Dynamax attack from that Togekiss will knock out the Dusclops, and then you also have to worry about, just a Follow Me coming out from Butterfree turn 1, so it doesn't seem like a super optimal play.
Yeah, but I wonder if Toph gets a little more aggressive here, if that really kind of gives them the reins, because the way the Ludwig's been playing, it's been very aggressive from their side. And I feel as though just Ludwig's kind of the type of player that really likes to play with that momentum swing that they get from being aggressive. So I would like to see Toph kind of go for something that's a bit more risky, I would say.
Yeah, it is just the Hitmontop and the Tyranitar again, though, so that didn't work out super nicely last time. And once again, you have the mind game. You fake out the Butterfree to deny the Sleep Powder. If you do, and the Butterfree just switches out into Rhyperior, I mean, I think we're just going to see a pretty clear repeat of that last game. Like, Ludwig had full control of that last game, and Toph didn't really do anything to contest it. But looks like this time around, the Butterfree is actually going to stay in, play a little bit safer here. I like that as well. You don't need to risk taking a potential, like, double up into the switch in. Like, maybe Toph adjusts by close combating the Butterfree slot. So, yeah, I'm just not the biggest fan of this lead here from Toph's end, but without knowing the other sets on his team, it's hard to really judge. I just think, like, Hitmontop, you pretty much always want in the back so you can switch into Rhyperior rather than just leading with it, because the most it offers you is a fake out. Maybe you can go for, like, a Helping Hand Dynamax Tyranitar, Max Darkness. That might be what he's going for, and that might also be why Ludwig decided to stay in, just to play it safe and Follow Me or Rage Powder.
Yeah, we'll see what happens, though, but you are right about the Dynamax. It is going to be that Tyranitar on Toph's side, going to be able to get that extra energy boost there from the Dynamax, and I want to see whether or not we actually do see the Helping Hand, and yeah, there it is, Helping Hand going to be able to help out Tyranitar in this situation, but Butterfree uses Sleep Powder, and it hits! Tyranitar is just asleep! It can't do anything this turn.
Yeah, putting a Dynamax Pokemon to sleep is like one of the worst feelings to go up against. So brilliant adjustment here by Ludwig. And yeah, I think that Helping Hand Max Darkness would have gotten the knockout onto the Dusclops, but that's the thing with this lead. It's super safe. Like, there is very little downside to the play that Ludwig went for, right? If Butterfree gets faked out, a Max Darkness probably isn't knocking out Dusclops anyway, because it's not like Tyranitar has something like a Life Orb. So once again, I think Toph will probably have his Dynamax, wasted this game, and I think all you need to go fish for right now from Ludwig's end is you Rage Powder, get the free switch into the Rhyperior, Bulldoze, and then just go for the same stuff you went for in that last game.
It was the right play, though, and I think we need to commend Toph for going with what was definitely kind of the best of a very difficult situation. I think that speaks volumes to Justin's level of coaching that actually ended up happening in this particular pair. So I really like that Toph was able to make the adjustment for the turn 1. It just unfortunately didn't work. The sleep landed. Tyranitar didn't get a chance to utilize the Helping Hand, and now we need to see some adjustments because Trick Room is active, Rhyperior is up, and Excadrill is now on the field.
I like the decision to finally switch out that Hitmontop, though. You conserve the Intimidate, and more importantly, as Tyranitar stays asleep, that's actually a big deal. Potentially could have gotten a knockout onto something there. I mean, the Butterfree would be the only candidate there, but now Rhyperior can't get the +2 attack boost, but I'm not sure it really needs it, to be honest, because even normal Max Quakes just kind of do so much damage against all of Toph's team. So, I mean, Toph's goal right now is to stall out Trick Room, but even when you stall out Trick Room, how do you beat Rhyperior? I guess it's that Gyarados, but Gyarados is going to be significantly weakened because there is the threat of Rage Powder from Butterfree. You have to worry about the Torkoal in the back, like, and reset the weather. Once Sun is up, Rhyperior is definitely going to be hanging on. So, yeah, I think great adjustments by both players, but because the team matchup didn't favor Toph, and Ludwig made the correct call in the first turn, it was a safe call to make as well. It was going to be difficult for Toph to win, especially against like Trick Room. His team just is not super well equipped, I think, to deal with Rhyperior and Torkoal. And so I like the Intimidate switch in here. At least makes Rhyperior a little bit weaker, but I think he'll probably still two-shot the Tyranitar as Tyranitar's Dynamax is going to be ending soon too.
Tyranitar's Dynamax is ending, and now Rhyperior's is beginning. This is just a standard level of play here coming out from this Trick Room team, and I mean, I've just been really impressed by how well these players have actually been playing with very standard teams. Max Quake from the Rhyperior is going to be able to connect with that Tyranitar that is still asleep at the moment, ends up doing about half to it, and ends up being super effective, but we need to kind of see the special defense, I think, boost here. Again, asleep. This is just such a difficult position for Toph to be in here, and the sleep powder is going to connect onto the Hitmontop too.
Yeah, so another turn of sleep. I mean, the Tyranitar was never threatening the Rhyperior with any damage because we know it's a special variant, but at least maybe could have picked out the knockout onto Butterfree. The Dynamax ends now as well, so basically Toph is playing without a Dynamax, and Hitmontop is asleep, which means it can't go for a fake out or a close combat. Rhyperior also still has a turn of Dynamax left, so yeah, definitely, Tyranitar eating up multiple turns of sleep, preventing it from getting at least a single knockout onto that Butterfree, and that Butterfree is really paying dividends right now, just able to spread so much disruption around in this game. But I like Ludwig's adjustment here too, right? He didn't force the Dusclops plus Rhyperior combination. Instead, he kind of just hard switched and said, you know what, I'm strong enough that even if you intimidate me, I can still do so much damage across the board, and Butterfree is, supporting the Rhyperior really well right now, so yeah, I think it's just really tough. Like you said, the matchup was tough, and you have to commend Toph for going for, a nice play turn 1, because if Ludwig doesn't anticipate that, and you just get the knockout, and you're actually in a great position. But Ludwig seems like he knows, what he's up against, and does not fall prey to some of the tricks.
Might have fallen prey to this trick, though. The switch there. Rage Powder again from the Butterfree to try to become the center of attention. Hitmontop is still asleep, but Toph ended up getting in the Gyarados, and it was a Max Quake that ended up going into that slot. So really good read there from Toph to be able to get the Gyarados in there and preserve their Pokemon for later.
Yeah, if there's any way Toph can win this game, you have to stall out the Trick Room, and then Gyarados can go for like a Waterfall or a Power Whip until the Rhyperior after the Dynamax ends, but he absolutely needs to conserve the Rhyperior right now. However, I think actually Toph has played this defensively pretty well. I think anytime you whiff an attack with Dynamax Rhyperior is a big deal because it just dishes out so much damage, and this time without getting the weakness policy proc, might not necessarily be getting a one-hit KO on everything it targets as well. That being said, the Dusclops in the back is still sitting fully healthy. Could really see Ludwig maybe even getting up a second Trick Room this game. It's been a little bit more drawn out, but it is just really tough for Toph's team to face up against Trick Room. And the other main thing is that he can't Dynamax in this game too.
No, the Dynamax was already gone there because Tyranitar, but then now it's going to be Max Rock into the Gyarados, and without the weakness policy getting procced, Gyarados survives that pretty well here. Sleep Powder, though, is going to... Oh, there's also a Protect there as well, so that was a really great read from Toph to be able to survive that damage, and it stalls out the Trick Room.
So Trick Room stalled out, Dynamax stalled out. I think Toph has played this as well as he could have, honestly. Given,
Absolutely.
Yeah, the poor turn one. The main thing here is that Rhyperior, Dusclops, and Torkoal are still fully healthy, and Butterfree's only taken like 50%. So I think like it's probably relatively easy for Ludwig to set up another Trick Room. I think a switch into Dusclops is certainly a good play to consider at some point. One way that, however, Toph can get around that is maybe finally getting a flinch off. If you knock out the Butterfree, then there's no more redirection, and then maybe you can go for something like an Iron Head or a Rock Slide from Excadrill Pulse onto the Dusclops. That won't knock out, but if you flinch it, then there's no Trick Room, and then maybe Tyranitar and Excadrill can sweep through outside of Trick Room.
Yeah, there's a slim chance, but there's still a chance, and I think that if anything is kind of shown us from Toph's level of play there, it's that they should be able to get themselves out of this situation. But Rage Powder, once again, is going to draw the attention away from Rhyperior, but Hitmontop finally awake here, gonna go for the Bullet Punch. Butterfree now getting down to about half health, and Bounce now coming out from Gyarados.
Yeah, so Bounce normally used when you're Dynamaxed. It is going to be able to dodge that Rock Slide. But one way around the Bounce is now you know the Bounce is certainly coming out next turn. You can switch out that Butterfree. That being said, Hitmontop actually pressures Rhyperior offensively with close combat. But yeah, I think like Ludwig can pretty easily set up a second Trick Room here. Like Hitmontop and Gyarados cannot stop Trick Room at all. They have no offensive pressure unless Gyarados has Crunch, maybe a Life Orb Helping Hand Crunch from Gyarados boosted by Hitmontop can knock out Dusclops. Even that I'm not sure is strong enough to get the KO. So I think Ludwig can just play this pretty safely. Sacrifice the Butterfree, bring in Dusclops again. You actually want Gyarados and Hitmontop out on the field because you don't have to deal with the flinch chance from something like Dark Pulse or Iron Head or Rock Slide. Although there is the threat of a Waterfall. But actually, great switch out here from the Hitmontop to bring in something that will counter that Dusclops a little bit more.
Yeah, Tyranitar's going to have to awaken, though, at some point because of the Sleep Powder that ended up connecting to it earlier on in the game while it was Dynamax. But Dusclops now coming back in for Rhyperior, and Dusclops is going to reveal once again that Tyranitar does have the Assault Vest. If you were watching the stream before, you'd know that already, but the Rage Powder is going to draw the attention away for the Dusclops to be able to get that set up, and Bounce now connected to the Butterfree is finally going to get it to knock out, but I think Butterfree has done the job that Ludwig was hoping that it would.
That is a Moxie boost there on the Gyarados, and the switching into Tyranitar. I mean, that actually is a phenomenal play there by Toph, and I think actually potentially gives him a huge shot at winning this game now, because we know that Tyranitar's taken 3 turns of sleep, so it can wake up. Yeah, I think that the main thing there with Butterfree is it had the opportunity to maybe go for a Sleep Powder there into the Tyranitar. Actually, you can't Sleep Powder it because it's already asleep. So yeah, I guess Rage Powder is your only option. You can maybe go for some damage with the Pollen Puff, but with Torkoal, I'm not even sure a +1 Gyarados and a Tyranitar can knock out this Dusclops, and the Torkoal will be, threatening with a lot of damage here. The key thing here is, yeah, Ludwig kind of locked himself in a Trick Room in one of those games last time in pools, and then had Solar Beam on the Torkoal, and then the Sun ran out. This time he has 5 turns of Sun, so it's probably a little bit better to choose Solar Beam as the attack. But I mean, Sun boosted Heat Wave still do a lot of damage against both. It's just not a great go for it. But if the Dusclops goes down here, you're going to be locked in. Here's the Waterfall. It's going to go into the Torkoal though, so I think that's probably another Trick Room coming up.
Yeah, Tyranitar is going to wake up, and it's going to use Snarl here against both Pokemon. It ends up doing quite a bit onto the Dusclops, but Torkoal also being able to tank a lot of that damage pretty effectively here. Torkoal is going to flinch, but Trick Room activated once again.
Yeah, I thought maybe in that position you can go for the Waterfall Dark Pulse double up into Dusclops. Even if that doesn't KO, you have a chance of flinching there. Now Trick Room goes up again, and I think it's going to be pretty difficult to, beat Trick Room now. That being said, I mean, this is an Assault Vest Tyranitar, so I don't think he'll faint from a Solar Beam, and Gyarados is actually putting on pretty good pressure with Waterfall, especially because, as soon as one of these Pokemon faint, Rhyperior has to come in, and then that Rhyperior can just get intimidated by the Hitmontop, which Toph is conserved. So even though Trick Room went up, this time around, it's actually a little bit more manageable, I think, especially because of that flinch last turn.
I think that flinch was actually pretty important onto the Torkoal, just because Torkoal wasn't able to get off any sort of chip damage to really put these Pokemon into range of getting KO'd. But Gyarados now going to play things a little bit safer on Toph's side, and go ahead and protect. Where did this Solar Beam target, though? It is going to target down the Tyranitar. And the Tyranitar.
With the Assault Vest.
Ooh.
Doesn't pick up the KO.
No, not quite. But...
Oh, double up into it. Beautiful play there by Ludwig. Very nice.
Oh, yeah. Gets the knockout for sure. And that double up was really important because Tyranitar was really necessary, I feel like, in order to try to survive those hits and get off some damage.
Yeah, we also got the timer notification, so timer is also certainly a win con now for both players, but yeah, that was a fantastic play there by Ludwig. I think a relatively safe one because it's Assault Vest Tyranitar, so you can double up into that slot. You either knock out Tyranitar, whatever switches in is probably getting knocked out or taking a ton of damage. I think in that position, Gyarados might have just wanted to go for a Waterfall. You just trade knockouts there, double up onto the Torkoal. One thing gets knocked out, sure, but then you knock out the Torkoal, and then it's a 2v3 where you have Hitmontop, and so you can, intimidate the opposing Rhyperior. Now, Toph is forced to bring out the Hitmontop, but you can't intimidate the Rhyperior anymore, so it does give Rhyperior a free opportunity to switch in.
Rhyperior gets a chance to utilize that Trick Room once again. It doesn't have the Dynamax energy on its side, but I don't think it really needs it in the scenario just because it just can do so much and outspeed. So Torkoal going to rotate back into its Pokeball, Rhyperior coming out in its stead, and now also a switch from Toph to get the Excadrill in, hoping that Excadrill might be able to do enough to be able to pressure it, but Hitmontop getting Fake Out into the Rhyperior will be able to eat that, and Memento now onto the Excadrill!
But the thing is, there's timer, so Ludwig just gave up a Pokemon for free with the timer.
Wow.
With Trick Room up, it's not like Excadrill is really doing much. I mean, I think what Ludwig was going for there was he's basically like, okay, I want the absolute freest switch into the Rhyperior. I'm afraid of you waterfalling that slot, but yeah, now Toph actually has the Pokemon advantage. I think if timer wasn't a thing, you could pretty easily click Rock Slide Heat Wave a couple of times, but the game is going to end after this turn. I'm also not sure if Toph knows about timer here, but you can pretty easily protect Excadrill, maybe swap Hitmontop out into Gyarados, and that's what Toph's going for. I think Toph might off timer.
Might actually be able to clutch this out. Toph played this beautifully after a disappointing turn one, and there's the protect coming in for the Excadrill as well. Heat Wave not going to be able to do too much to be able to knock out this Gyarados, and that's really what Ludwig is hoping for at this moment, is getting the knockout. And you can see the Rhyperior, the Rock Slide, not going to be able to get it to protect, but is it going to be enough to knock out this Gyarados?
It is, yes.
Yes. Oh, but yeah, battle's gonna end in 15 seconds.
Yeah, I don't even think Toph was honestly playing till the timer until, like I don't think, yeah, it's such a, it's hard to play around it, especially against, offensive Trick Room. It just so happened that Ludwig gave him that window of opportunity by bringing in the, by going for the Memento. I think, yeah, now you have fully healthy. I think Toph should win this off timer because the Torkoal has taken so much damage, whereas Hitmontop hasn't. So with the timers, it's first the number of Pokemon you have, and then it's a tiebreaker based off the amount of HP you have over total amount of HP. So the game will now end from the timer, and I think ultimately Ludwig wasn't able to sweep with Rhyperior, and that actually really limited his abilities this game. And yeah, Toph ends up getting the win. Wow.
Wow. You could see the look of confusion. What a way to... We've seen everything today, haven't we, Aaron? It's just so much.
Yeah, and to be honest, I think had Ludwig had one more turn this game, he probably would have won. I mean, they
just not mementoing.
Go for a fake out reset, but yeah, I think Ludwig probably just needed to get the... There are two things he could have done, right? You either get the initial weakness policy proc onto the Rhyperior, or in the second scenario, you have to predict the Gyarados potentially coming in and not waste a Quake into that slot. Toph had really good switch outs this game, but yeah, I mean, that timer is a factor in this game, and I don't even think Toph was like taking the maximum amount of time. Like it just so happened, like, based off how much time both players had taken. Yeah, like that was it. And I think, like, Ludwig probably needed 2 more turns, right? Because Toph would have been able to go for a fake out onto the Torkoal, and then I don't think Rhyperior would have been able to actually knock out either Pokemon. So Ludwig probably needed a couple more minutes if he actually wanted to win that one.
Whew, yeah, that would have been, that was kind of an epic way to kind of end things there. But Memento definitely kind of sealed the deal, actually Ludwig's fate in that game. We will have to go to a game 3 between these two players. And wow, I have no words. I just have no words for the kind of the amazing play that we've really gotten a chance to see from both of these players.
Yeah, and this gives Toph a big opportunity, right? You know Ludwig's probably going to want to lead Butterfree and the Dusclops again, so play around that. What's the best way around that? I mean, I was talking about Tyranitar Excadrill, and I mean, that one is still risky, though, because if you don't get a flinch on the Dusclops, the Trick Room just goes off, you give a free switch into Rhyperior, which is exactly what Rhyperior wants often. So then, I mean, if you go with the Hitmontop and the Tyranitar again, like, maybe you consider not Dynamaxing the Tyranitar, but that's risky because then what if, you know, Ludwig just goes for the same play of switching out into Rhyperior turn 1. So I think the game is definitely tricky from Toph's end because Ludwig has a really safe, consistent lead option. And I think Ludwig definitely has, I think, a slight team advantage, but Toph demonstrated how you can win in that last game. You need to be able to at least waste 1 turn from Rhyperior by defensively switching it into a Max Quake, conserve your Hitmontop. He made some smart protects there with Gyarados there in the end as well. I think Gyarados a really critical member here. So yeah, let's see how this last game plays out.
Man, I don't know how much coaching was involved, but again, I just want to make sure I get the correction in there. I've said, I think a couple of times there, but we really mean Justin. Justin is Toph's coach, and as I feel like done an incredible job depending on the level of coaching here. Yeah, definitely. I think super proud of Toph in this moment for being able to eke it out with the timer, and also just played that phenomenally well. I have no words to describe how well Toph actually came back from that one.
So. Yeah. All right. Let's see how this third game goes. Once again, I think like the Trick Room, it's so hard to stop Trick Room from being set up. I think once again, Toph's best bet is trying to go for a flinch turn 1. So if he doesn't want to play to that out, perhaps he just goes with the same combination and uses really the same strategy. I mean, the big question here is there any Pokemon that he can swap around potentially to a strategy? And I feel like the 4 Pokemon he's bringing are probably the best 4 Pokemon in this matchup.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's just the lead once again. Hitmontop like really doesn't do too much. I don't know, but I don't think Togekiss is the answer here. That gets demolished by Rhyperior, and I don't feel like Rotom is the answer either. We haven't seen the Gyarados moveset. We only saw Bounce in that last one, so still don't know if it's like a Dragon Dance set or something. But yeah, I think Toph either goes with the same lead and then tries to gamble a little bit on turn 1, because what you can do is if you call the Rhyperior switch in, maybe Dynamax the, like, actually one interesting play, yeah, I mean Dynamax Tyranitar and then maybe double up into the Butterfree slot if you're predicting that to go out into Rhyperior, but I think Rhyperior might even hang on from that, which makes it so tough to go up against. So I think the most important thing for Ludwig is basically get the weakness policy off this time, as you have pretty much every other game. And for Toph, if you want to gamble, maybe go Tyranitar Excadrill. If not, you could certainly just go back to Hitmontop and Tyranitar, although I still don't feel like that's his most consistent option.
Well, we're going to get into Game 3. Definitely a way to end the game for Game 2, but it's time for Game 3, and it's going to be same leads from Toph. It's going to be that Hitmontop and the Excadrill, and the same leads from Ludwig, again trying to set up that Trick Room with the Butterfree and the Dusclops, but this time, maybe Toph won't get slept.
Yeah, once again, like, you can't stop Trick Room with this lead. If the Butterfree just goes for, I mean, you can opt for the Sleep Powder once again. I don't think a Dynamax Max Darkness is knocking out Dusclops, so we've seen the same lead every time, but yeah, I still think Ludwig always has the advantage with this lead, but maybe Toph just going for it because he thinks it's his best option. But, I mean, if Ludwig decides to get a little risky and actually switch in that Rhyperior turn 1 and Toph goes for the exact same Helping Hand Max Darkness play, that might just be the game turn 1, honestly, if Toph is able to pull that off. But that's an incredibly risky move to make, given that Ludwig was able to play around that by just putting the Tyranitar to sleep with Sleep Powder last game.
Well, there's going to be a bit of an adjustment here. Rhyperior actually going to be on the switch in here for this move. And Fake Out, though, onto the Butterfree slot is actually fairly free here. I think this was actually a great play coming in from Ludwig, and the Trick Room goes off.
Yeah, so pretty much the exact same play we saw from game 1, but Ludwig gambling, saying, hey, there's no way you're going to go for the same play you did last time in the last game after I just shut you down completely. So he gambles a little bit, but it pays off perfectly. This is the exact dream scenario once again. But it looks like he opted not to Dynamax the Rhyperior there, opted to Rock Slide instead. So maybe predicting the Hitmontop to just switch out into Gyarados and saying, I don't even need to Dynamax. I don't need the extra bulk right now. Might as well just power through with Rock Slide. So that play actually makes a lot of sense. I think Hitmontop a lot of the times does want to switch out, and Ludwig doesn't actually want to confine himself to go for single target attacks. With Rock Slide, you're able to just hit everything, especially that Gyarados, which often wants to switch in. So kind of a mix-up there. It could be risky if Hitmontop chooses to stay in and just go for a close combat. That would do a ton of damage, but don't think that'd be knocking it out anyway. So I think Ludwig has the dream position once again.
Yeah, Rhyperior gets a chance to move first. Hitmontop getting withdrawn here, and it is going to be the Gyarados that ends up getting the switch in. Was it a Rock Slide? That's actually what's coming out here. Dusclops going for the Bulldoze, is going to pop the weakness policy, and what a great read now coming in from Ludwig.
That is such a sick play there, honestly. I mean, it's pretty safe because Hitmontop, close combat, I don't think knocks out Rhyperior anyway, and you have the chance of flinching, but man, this is going to obliterate the Gyarados, and it's going to do a ton of Tyranitar. Might even get a flinch. Let's see if it connects. It does.
It's going to connect up to both Pokemon. Gyarados, one hit knockout there right off the switch. And Tyranitar taking about half damage. This is a great play. Great start here for Ludwig. Toph is going to have to take a lot to be able to come back from this one. Dusclops still not knocked out yet.
Yeah, honestly, I think that's probably going to be the game. You still have to weather 3 turns of Trick Room. There hasn't even been a Dynamax from Excadrill, and who do you even Dynamax at this point? Tyranitar's never doing any damage against the Rhyperior. Maybe you Dynamax Hitmontop, but if Hitmontop Dynamaxing would actually do less damage with that first Max Knuckle. So yeah, at least you get an Intimidate off here, but yeah, I think this is super free. Ludwig can just easily Dynamax the Rhyperior. You can even go for a Memento into like Hitmontop to get a free switch in into the Torkoal, and just don't think there's any way of really stopping him here, bar a monumental misplay from Ludwig. But that was a really, really smart play. I think so many players are often really, really prone to just Dynamaxing and attacking on the first turn, and Ludwig said, you know what, I'm going to predict the switch in. Even if I don't get it, this is still a relatively safe play, and worked out perfectly for him. So
incredible.
Yeah. Really, really well done.
Yeah, we'll see what ends up coming up next, but I think we know how this one goes. At least we're getting maybe a bit ahead of ourselves here. I think Toph still has a chance to kind of make some pivots, make some clean plays, and really show off what they're made of in terms of being a VGC player. But definitely it's taking their time to decide what to do in this situation, because it's a tough spot. It's a real tough spot to be in. But Dusclops making the switch out here for Ludwig, going to be able to bring in the Torkoal, going to reset the weather there with the ability of Drought. And now it's really kind of comes down to what happens next. This is such a pivotal turn to really end this game.
Yeah, and the Dynamax comes out now, and what was beautiful about that last turn by Ludwig was not only did he get the knockout on the Gyarados, but he also basically gets an extra turn of Dynamax there. And the team matchup is already so difficult. Like, if Trick Room goes up, it's really difficult for Toph to really be able to win, and this time, like, I think Ludwig has pretty much played the first 2 turns of this game absolutely flawlessly, and Toph going for the fake out there, but you can't flinch Dynamax Pokemon, so that pretty much will spell the end of whatever Pokemon Rhyperior is targeting here.
Yeah, with that Max Quake going into the Tyranitar slot, and that's going to be it for that Pokemon. And now it's really just Hitmontop left and whatever is in the back, because Tyranitar and Gyarados are both knocked out.
Yeah, there was no counterplay to that, honestly, from Toph's end. I think this game was pretty much impossible to win after the great read by Ludwig on that second turn. If there was any time to gamble for Toph's end, I think maybe he wanted to just consider going for the Helping Hand Max Darkness play again, but that's so risky because it failed so miserably in that first time. But I think this matchup was just really tough for Toph. His team didn't have great Trick Room answers. Didn't have a way to guarantee the Trick Room from being set up, which was already pretty difficult. And then Ludwig made some masterful plays here in this third game. So, of course, Toph right now can Dynamax one of the 2 Pokemon, but there's still multiple turns of Trick Room. Torkoal will just be able to, get a one-hit KO until that Hitmontop and bring Excadrill down to a Focus Sash. It's like the dream scenario once again for Ludwig. So I think we're probably just a couple of turns away now from the game ending, probably 2.
Yeah, we have just a couple of turns left for sure. What a way, though. That was really such a 50-50 at the beginning, whether or not Toph decided to go for the same play again or try to go for something a little bit different. But the Butterfree switch out was so clean by Ludwig. Yeah, this is Toph's last hope here. Gonna try to Dynamax anyway, just to try to get in as much damage as possible. Excadrill will be able to see this Dynamax energy for itself this time. And I usually love seeing Excadrill Dynamax, but in this scenario, I just don't think it's going to be enough. Hitmontop using the Helping Hand might be able to get the knockout onto something, but Eruption first, and that was almost a double knockout there just by itself. So much damage coming up from the Eruption. Wow.
Yeah, I think kind of like a last-ditch effort there. You can certainly respect that. Maybe we hope that Ludwig messes up and doubles up onto the Hitmontop here, but playing it super safe there on Ludwig's end, knocking out the biggest threat, and very clean, dominating victory here from Ludwig.
Wow, what a way to go, though. Oh my goodness. Yeah, unfortunately, just the Hitmontop is not going to be enough to get through the rest of the Pokemon there. Ludwig still has 4 very healthy Pokemon, and this was just a fantastic series. Toph really put up a huge effort in this one, and it shows. It really shows.
Yeah, I feel like, given that the matchup was never really that great for Toph, and he didn't make any adjustments, I feel like in that game 3, you kind of have to go big or go home. I don't think Fake Out Dark Pulse ever accomplishes much because at best you flinch the Butterfree. I guess you maybe are fishing for a flinch there onto the Dusclops, but even if you get that flinch, the following turn you can just go for Follow Me and set up Trick Room. So yeah, I think basically Toph needed better answers against the Trick Room, and yeah, I mean he had to play a game 2. If he just went for it again game 3, probably would have given him a huge lead. But I think that's such a difficult play to make. I'm not sure I would even ever make that play in Toph's position. So it is tough. The matchup was not very great, and I think Ludwig also played massively. He just showed very, very great skill with this team. So when you're going up against a tough matchup and your opponent's playing perfectly, there's not much you can really do. But yeah, props to both players there.